Welcome back to our final module in Section 3 Field Methods, Transparency and Reproducibility. I'm Jennifer Sturdy with the Center for Effective Global Action here at UC Berkeley, and I am the Program Director for the Berkeley Initiative for Transparency in the Social Sciences. Just want to highlight that there is one additional resource that we do want to direct you to, which has a lot more information than what's available in this lecture. And that is the Manual of Best Practices in Transparent Social Science by the BITS project scientist Garrett Christensen. That's available online at that link included in the PowerPoint. So please feel free to reference that in addition to your learning guides. So why be transparent? Hopefully the answer is obvious because it's very important and certainly lends credibility and accountability to us as researchers. Your claims as a researcher should be subject to scrutiny by other researchers and the public at large, especially when your research is being used for big decisions and public decisions. Other researchers should be able to use easily accessible resources to form a complete understanding of the methods that you used to design and implement the original study. And to make research more transparent, there's a few things we can do. We can register our studies prospectively with hopefully a pre-analysis plan that lays out the research questions and objectives that the study will test and how they will be answered and tested. And once research is being conducted, keep in mind how your study could be replicated in the future. So thinking about that from the beginning so that when your research is completed and you have published your findings, you're able to share your data and code publicly, if possible, so that others may replicate your work. And we'll talk about that in more detail. So there are a few challenges with a lack of transparency to keep in mind, and certainly some evolving solutions with tackling some of these challenges. So first that we'll go over is fraud and unintentional bias, then publication bias, and then trial registration, data mining, and replication and reproducibility. So first with fraud, it's hard to believe, but fraud in science and in research does indeed occur. And we also need to think about not just intentional fraud, but unintentional bias that may enter into our analysis and skew and bias our own results. Second is publication bias. This is, of course, the selective publication in academic journals of only papers with statistically significant results. This has been identified originally by Bob Rosenthal in 1979 as the file drawer problem. So researchers running a lot of analysis as they conduct their studies and kind of finding perhaps not statistically significant results or not very interesting or sensational results that then stay in their file drawer and actually no one ever hears about them or sees them in publication. Or submit to a journal only to have the journal think, certain non-results or not statistically significant results aren't interesting or worth publishing, therefore sending them back to the researcher's file drawer. This, of course, means that we have no idea how many of those published significant results are actually true evidence of the real effects and which are just the 5% of random draws that may actually in fact have a true zero effect. Third brings us to trial registration. Now this is actually one potential solution to the publication bias problem, whereby researchers ex ante register their studies and potentially pre-analysis plans, but basically the research hypotheses that they're setting out to test and how they will test them in some sort of centralized registry that allows us to at least understand what's that denominator of studies that are taking place that may or may not be published. There are several social science registries to keep in mind. The American Economic Association, so AEA's registry for RCTs only, is available online at www.socialscienceregistry.org. 3IE also has a registry for evaluations of development programs, and the Center for Open Science also allows a platform for registering studies. Meta-analysis research is also another method of detecting and dealing with publication bias to the extent that it is able to collect information from a wide array of published findings. However, of course, by definition, if the meta-analysis is only using the published findings, it already may be skewed by the publication bias of what is basically publicly available. For data mining, also known as p-hacking, this is where researchers blindly or not so blindly run regressions after regressions until statistical significance is obtained. Certainly we can recognize that a data set can be analyzed in so many different ways that eventually you can find a few variables where there's a statistical significant impact on them. There are a series of potential solutions that exist for addressing this problem. The first is pre-analysis plans. Pre-analysis plans can be used to reduce data mining. These are a detailed outline of the analyses that will be conducted in the study. They contain a specification of the expected outcomes of the study and of the methods that will be used to analyze such outcomes. And really we want to distinguish between the fact that there's confirmatory research and exploratory research. We certainly don't want pre-analysis plans to tie anyone's hands and prevent them from exploring the data set once they have it, but we just want to advocate for and make sure that that analysis and that sort of exploratory research is really well documented and understood. Another potential solution to p-hacking or data mining are the establishment of project protocols. These are a detailed recipe or instruction manual for others to use to reproduce the study. When using administrative data, you'd want to share your data and code so that that analysis is transparent and available. And if you are conducting original data collection, make sure you are providing very detailed descriptions of what exactly you did as a researcher. The next big issue facing transparency is, of course, replication and reproducibility. Replicating and reproducing implies several different possible things. First, it could imply that we're trying to run the same code on the same data to reproduce the results of a published paper. It could mean that we're testing the same model, but on a new set of data. It could also mean that we're attempting to test the robustness of a previous result by testing different regression specifications. But certainly, in order to do any of these things, we do need to make data and code publicly available. This means we want to make our workflow and code publicly available and as well documented as possible. Publicly available code needs to be easily available and easily interpretable. We do not want to be able to modify the data by hand. Instead, we want to do everything with scripts and with extensive commenting. To conclude, many of the activities described here do require some extra work, but if they are thought about ex ante, at the beginning of study design and implementation and integrated into that work, certainly they can be spread out over time so that your end goal of making your research reproducible can be met. If these activities are left to be conducted ex post and at the end of a study, they certainly can be even more burdensome and require even more work than if they had been integrated into your planning over the course of your study. These steps are really not that difficult once you get used to them, and they are well worth the reward of putting out there transparent and reproducible research. Making research more transparent and reproducible certainly allows us, other researchers, the public, to believe the statistical results that are being published and put out there. So that concludes Section 3 and Module 3.4. Thank you very much.